All right, Pete here from A Bit Twisted. So I'm finishing up rippling my flax that I grew this year. Get as much seed off as I can and into this bucket, and I've got piles of seed pods here. Not all of it is viable seed, but I think a good enough portion is. And so I'm going to be setting this up. So this flax was grown very, very dense. It grew very, very short compared to what most flax grows. So this here is how tall it grew up to where my hands are. These are just grass seed, but the flax should have been all the way up here where the seed pods are now, should be way up here. But what I did get was a whole bunch of really super thin stalks, straight thin stalks with hardly any branching at the tips. So even though it's short, it's still usable, and it may actually produce some extremely fine fiber, and that's what I'm hoping for. I am going to be putting it in my Retting tank. My Retting tank is a little rusty, so it's going to give an off color, kind of a gray off color when I'm done. That's okay. I'm more after how fine the fiber is versus the color. And I do tank retting rather than field retting because it's just so hot out here. Field retting does not do that well. So I want to get it done quickly. And so I'm using my hackle that I made, my big one, and I use that as my ripple into this container, and I just run it through. And as you can see, I'm still leaving the grass in here because when everything rots away, this grass is just going to break apart and fall away when we break the flax. So the grass I'm not worried about. But the grass did grow up quite a bit taller than the flax. That could have also been part of the reason the flax didn't grow as tall as I would have liked. But, I mean, got thick bundles of really thin stalks. So it's not going to be super long fiber, but it should be some really nice stuff. And so I'm finishing this up, getting the seeds off. As soon as I get the seeds off, it's going to go into the Retting tank, which is behind me, over by the big tree behind me. And then we'll let it sit for, it probably be about 4 days. And it is in the shade, but it is hot, so I have to monitor and change water so I don't kill the bacteria and all the goodies that live in the water that do all the work to the retting. And also because there's rust, I want to make sure I keep the water changed often enough to maybe make it not quite such a problem with the rust in the tank. I don't want to not use the tank because it's the only tank I have at the moment, and I need to get this done. And so I just take big handfuls and hold it tight, and I just run my big hackle over the fiber, or over the flax stems, and it pulls off the seed pods and drops them into the bucket. And some of the grass breaks off, and I just throw that out. And then we'll do another video of the actual processing of the seed, and we'll show you how much seed I actually got. So it'll be enough to plant another harvest, not like an acre or anything, but a really good plot. and not quite so dense. I don't think I'm going to plant quite so dense, but we will continue doing flax, and I'll continue saving seed since it's difficult getting seed from overseas and extremely expensive getting seed here in the United States for any amount of large plots and things like that. So that's what I'm doing. So I've got a bunch that I've already done. It doesn't take very long to do this. I got a bunch over off to the side. And I also have a bunch of yucca leaves from our yucca plants. Some of them were already dead, but they still actually have fiber in them. And when I put these into the Retting tank, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my yucca leaves, which is a fairly good amount, and I'm going to put them in the very bottom. And I'm going to ret those things. And those will probably be retted much longer because it's a much tougher fiber to deal with. And ret those longer and get some fiber out of those, and then see what kind of good fiber I can get for spinning some more of nature's fiber. And that's one of my things is a bit twisted and nature's fiber, as opposed to man-made artificial plastics, things like that. And I am not, bamboo fiber is rayon. It's chemically processed, and I will not use it. Even though it's rayon and it is biodegradable, it's still heavily dependent on chemicals. So I don't do that. So bamboo fiber is not like what I'm doing here. This is true nature fiber here. Just straight from the plant, bast fiber. Now, if bamboo had bast fiber like this stuff and made some nice small sharp pieces of really fine fiber, that'd be wonderful. I would definitely go for that. But as it is, it doesn't. And I have some seed that's fallen out of these pods on this blue tarp, so I got to save all this stuff here, and that'll all go through the processing, and we'll get as much seed as possible since I have a limited amount this year. But what was interesting is my wife found a fairly large bag full of seed that I had harvested last year that I didn't think I had, and so it never got planted. So I have all those seed too, and so I will be good on seed. And then this next time I'm going to be very, very careful to make sure I get really good seed out of my plants next time around here. And now that I have my shop, I can kind of show this process at the shop. So I'm going to save some of these bundles unretted and rippled, and then show a process over at the studio, and so people can see what the process is, so they can see, the dried plant from the field, straight from the field, right here, just like this. Even with the weeds or grass, it's not impossible to do. One year I had a problem with bindweed. Bindweed grew up all around the stalks of the plants, coiled up around everything. That was a mess. But I still had a lot of good fiber that I was able to extract from that. And none of the bindweed ended up in any of the finished fiber. It all just broke away. So right now it's really hot out here. We're in the 107 plus degrees today. Probably not that hot here in the shade, but nonetheless it's still hot. And but I need to get this done and get my two of my walnut trees over here watered after I get these in the Retting tank, because they're needing some really deep water. We're going to water them for a good day or two. We're just going to turn the water on and just let it run. We're just going to flood the area with water and let it soak in deep. And so we have 40 some walnut trees here on the property, all grown organically. So we have that too. And sales haven't been so good the last couple years because of this COVID stuff, but hopefully next year. And next year I'll have time to process everything, because it's hard to do it when you're working full time to get all that done. It's just a ton of work. So we'll see. Next year I'll be retired from my main job, and I will have plenty of time at home at harvest time to do our walnuts and get them sold. We can probably do quite well. Get a good chunk of cash. I can do the walnut trees and pay for my studio. I'd like to buy a studio rather than lease it. And if I can get everything going right, we should be able to make enough to make partial payments anyway. But anyway, that's just talking. I just wanted to show the video and how I'm doing this, and then just stack it all up. And this is all ready to go into the Retting tank here as soon as I'm done scraping. So it's that quick. It's easy. This is easy work here. It doesn't take that long. You can see. And it's nice because I like these because it's just straight. There's almost no branching, and that's perfect. No branching. That's just going to be, I think, perfect. And that's because you're planting densely and not allowing the plant to branch when it grows. I think I might need to water more, feed my ground a little bit better. That process has been a little bane for me too, is getting my soil farmed properly. So let me put this up for a minute. Let me finish this, and then we'll take you over to the Retting tank as soon as I'm done here. And then we'll see you in a few minutes. All right, back after a few minutes here. So now we're here at the Retting tank, which is basically just a big watering tank for sheep or cattle or whatever. It is galvanized, but the galvanization is very thin, so it rusts anyway. So I have Yucca fibers here, and they do produce fiber. So we're going to ret this in the tank with the flax, and this will be in the tank, like I said, probably for longer than the flax itself will be. So I'm going to start getting the flax, and we're going to start loading this up, and then I'll show you how I set this up real quick. So once it's wet, it'll shrink down. So I put some root in that way, I'm going to put some root end the opposite way. Big handfuls. And it's okay to put quite a bit in here. So root there, root there. So we're going to flip-flop putting this stuff in. So we have X amount of pounds going into the tank. Stuff's gonna float like a little float. All right, almost there. Another good handful here and we'll be good to go. A bit of work, but worth the effort. Okay, here's the last. This is really full. Might be a little too full, but I'll work with it. As it rets, it'll move down. As you can see, just like that. So that's actually not too bad. I've done this many times already, so we're good. So every other day I'm going to drain water off and leave it at that. So I'm going to go turn the water on, then I'll start setting it up to show you how we hold it down. All right, so now I'm going to get some water into it. So I've got the plug plugged off at the bottom. So I'm just going to shove this hose down in there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get 2 blocks of wood. One each side, just like this here. And then we're going to get a couple more, like so. And like so, just like that. And then get 2 more like that. Then I'm going to get a big block, big stone block. So turn that just enough so it doesn't bind against the sides, so it can just push down as it fills with water. And these are just the weights that will hold it all, keep it from floating away. So once we get to the point of full, we'll come back to the video. Okay, so now our tank is really getting full. It's water's starting to rise up above, and the stones are keeping the flax down and under the water. So versus throwing them in a pond or a creek and just pile a bunch of rocks on, which most of the rocks fall off, this is a very viable way. But I would suggest either a really super high quality galvanized or, God forbid, plastic. I'm not a fan of plastic, but if it's something that can last for 50 years and be used and then properly dispose of it, I'm good. So once the water comes up over the edge, we will be done. Catch an earwig, get rid of the earwig. There's lots of bugs, microbugs, bacteria, whatnot in all of this stuff. And you'll see I'll be doing video as well. So some of the bugs are crawling out. Spider, some kind of beetle. Actually looks like a weevil, small weevil. It's coming out of the water. A lot of bugs will come up to the top before they drown, and they'll climb out and be just fine. Some, well, they might not make it, and but we are and save the bugs. Save the bugs. Save the bugs. So, about ready to, oh, more earwigs crawling around there, coming out of the fiber. They'll swim around and get out. Yeah, get down off there. And there you have a full tank of water in the full Retting tank full of water, ready to go. And the flax itself is all pretty much underwater. A little bit here, maybe not, but that'll work. The majority of it is underwater, and it works. So there you have it, and we will come back and revisit this shortly. A couple days. Talk to you later.